All right, we're back, everyone. Shalom. Brother Joshua is going to be he's going to be doing a reading for us, First Chronicles 12 to 14, and then Brother Dennis will be following him. So whenever you're ready, brother.
All right, I'm coming out of the Complete Apostles Bible. Um, so First Chronicles 12 says, "And these are those that came to Ziklag when he kept himself close because of Shaul, the son of Kish. And these were among the mighty, aiding him in war, and using the bow with the right hand and with the left, and slingers with stones and shooters with bows, are the brethren of Shaul of Benjamin. The chief was Ahiezer, then Joash, son of Shema, the Gibeathite, Yaziel and Pelet, sons of Azmaveth, Berekah, and Yahu of Anathoth. Ishmael the Gibeonite, a mighty man among the 30, and over the 30, and Jeremiah, Yahaziel, Johanan, and Jozabad, the Gederathite. Elu, Eluzai, Jeremoth, Behaliah, Shemaria, and Shephatiah, the Haruphite. Elkanah, Jeshiah, Azarel, Joezer, and Yashobim, and the Korahites. And Joelah and Zebediah, the sons of Jeroham, and the men of Gedor. And from God these separated themselves to Daud from the wilderness, strong mighty men of war, bearing shields and spears, and their faces were as the faces of lions, and they were as nimble as gazelles upon the mountains in speed. Give me a second. Verse 9. Ezer the chief, Obadiah the second, Eliab the third, Mishmanah the fourth, Jeremiah the fifth, Attai the sixth, Eliel the seventh, Johanan the eighth, Elzabad the ninth, Jeremiah the tenth, Machbaniah the 11th. These were chiefs of the armies of the sons of Gad, the least one commander of 100, and the greatest one of 1,000. These are the men that crossed over the Jordan in the first month, and it had overflowed all its banks, and they drove out all the inhabitants of the valleys from the east to the west. And there came of the sons of Benjamin and Yehuda to the assistance of Daud, and Daud went out to meet them and said to them, If you have come peaceably to me, let my heart be at shalom with you. But if you have come to betray me to my enemies unfaithfully, may the Eluah of your fathers look upon it and bring judgment. And the Ruach came upon Amasai, the captain of the 30, and he said, Go, Daud, son of Yesse, you and your people. Shalom, shalom be to you, and shalom to your helpers, for your Eluah has helped you. And Daud received them and made them captains of the forces. And some came to Daud from Manasseh when the Philistines came against Shaul to war, and he helped them not, because the captains of the Philistines took counsel, saying, With the heads of those men will he return to his master Shaul. When Daud was going to Ziklag, those from Manasseh who defected to him were Adnah, Jozabath, Yadiel, Mikael, Jozabad, Elihu, and Zilithai. And they fought in the sight of Daud against the troop. And they were all men of might, and they were commanders in the army because of their might. For men came to Daud day by day, for they amounted to a great force, as the force of Yahuwah. And these are the names of the commanders of the army who came to Daud to Hebron to turn the kingdom of Shaul to him according to the word of Yahuwah. The sons of Yehuda, bearing shields and spears, 6,800 mighty men in war. 6,800 mighty in war. Of the sons of Simeon, mighty for battle, 7,100. Of the sons of Levi, 4,600. And Jehoiada, the chief of the family of Aaron, with him 3,700. And Zadok, a young man, mighty in strength, and there were 22 leaders of his father's house. And of the sons of Benjamin, the brethren of Shaul, 3,000. And still the greater part of them kept the guard of the house of Shaul. And of the sons of Ephraim, 20,800 mighty men, famous in the houses of their fathers. And of the half tribe of Manasseh, 18,000. Even those were named by name to make Daud king. And of the sons of Issachar, having wisdom with regards and times, knowing what Yasharal should do, 200 and all their brethren with them. And of Zebulun, they that went out to battle with all weapons of war, of 50,000 to help Daud, not weak-handed. And of Naphtali, 1,000 captains, and with them men with shields and spears, 37,000. And of the Danites, men ready for war, for 28,800. And of Asher, they that went out to give aid in war, 40,000. And from the country beyond the Jordan, from Reuben and the Gadites, and from the half tribe of Manasseh, 120,000 with all weapons of war. And these were men of war, setting the army in battle array, with a shalomful mind towards him. And they came to Hebron to make Daud king over all Yasharal. And the rest of Yasharal were of one mind to make Daud king. And they were there 3 days, eating and drinking, for their brethren had made preparations. And their neighbors, as far as Issachar and Zebulun and Naphtali, brought to them upon camels, donkeys, mules, and upon calves, victuals, meal, cakes of figs, raisins, wine, and oil, calves and sheep abundantly, for there was joy in Yasharal. 1 Chronicles 13. And Daud took counsel with the captains of thousands and captains of hundreds, and with every commander. And Daud said to the whole congregation of Yasharal, if it seems good to you, and if should be prospered by Yahweh our Eloah, let us send to our brethren that are left in all the land of Yasharal, and let the priests, the Levites who are with them in the cities of their possession come, and let them be gathered to us. Let us bring over to us the ark of our Eloah, for men have not inquired at it since the days of Shaul. And all the congregation said that they would do thus, for the saying was right in the eyes of all the people. So Daud assembled all Yasharal from the borders of Mitzrayim, even to the entering in of Hamath, to bring in the ark of Yahuwah from the city of Yerim. And Daud brought it up. And all Yasharal went up to the city of Daud, which belonged to Yehudah, to bring up from there the ark of Yahweh Eloah, who sits between the cherubim, where his name is proclaimed. And they set the ark of Yahuwah on a new wagon, brought out of the house of Abinadab. And Uzzah and his brethren drove the wagon. And Daud and all Yasharal were playing before Yahuwah with all their might, and that together with singers, and with harps, and with lutes, with timbrels, and with cymbals, and with trumpets. And they came as far as the threshing floor, and Uzzah put forth his hand to hold the ark, because the bull had moved it from its place. And Yahuwah was very angry with Uzzah, and struck him there, because of his stretching forth his hand upon the ark. And he died there before Yahuwah. And Daud was dispirited, because Yahuwah had made a breach on Uzzah. And he called that place the breach of Uzzah until this day. And Daud feared Yahuwah. Give me a second. Verse 12. And Daud feared Yahuwah that day, saying, how shall I bring the ark of Yahuwah into myself? So Daud brought not the ark home to himself into the city of Daud, but he turned it aside into the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. The ark of Yahuwah abode in the house of Obed-Edom for 3 months, and Yahuwah baruched Obed-Edom and all that he had. I think that was 12 through 14. Oh wait, here we go. I didn't get 14. That was weird. I pushed the next button and it skipped forward 2 chapters. First Chronicles 14. And Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to Daud, and cedar timbers and masons. Give me a second, sorry. And Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to Daud, and cedar timbers and masons and carpenters to build a house for him. And Daud knew that Yahuwah had designed him to be king over Yasharal, because his kingdom was highly appointed. Designed him to be king over Yasharal because his kingdom was highly exalted on account of his people Yasharal. And Daud took more wives in Yerushalayim, and there were born to Daud more sons and daughters. And these are the names of those that were born to him in Yerushalayim: Shammua, Shobab, Nathan, Shalomo, Ibhar, Elishua, Alpalet, Noga, Nefeg, Yafia, Alishama, Bealiada, Aliphalet. And the Philistines heard that Daud was anointed king over all Yasharal. And all the Philistines went up to seek Daud. And Daud heard it and went out to meet them. And the Philistines came and assembled together in the Giants' Valley. And Daud inquired of Yahuwah, saying, Shall I go up against the Philistines, and will you deliver them into my hand? And Yahuwah said to him, Go up, and I will deliver them into your hands. And he went up to Baal Parazim, and Daud defeated them there. And Daud said, Yahuwah has broken through my enemies by my hand like a breach of water. Therefore he called the name of that place the breach of Parazim. And the Philistines left their mighty ones there, and Daud gave orders to burn them with fire. And the Philistines once more assembled themselves in the Giants' Valley. And Daud inquired of Yahuwah again. And Yahuwah said to him, You shall not go after them. Turn away from them, and you shall come upon them. And you shall come upon them near the pear trees. And it shall be when you shall hear the sound of their tumult in the tops of the pear trees, and you shall go into the battle. For Yahuwah has gone out before you to strike the army of the Philistines. And he did as Yahuwah commanded him. And he drove back the army of the Philistines from Gibeon to Gezer. And the name of Daud was famous in all the land, and Yahuwah put the terror of him on all the nations. That was 12 through 14. Real quick before Brother Dennis goes, Uzzah, was Uzzah a Levite? I was reading through that, but I missed that because he touched the ark and was killed for it.
I don't know, brother. My mom's gonna check right now. I'm not too familiar with Uzzah. I'm not really familiar with his family, if he's a Levite or not. Not too sure. But what verse was it? Before Dennis goes and finishes up this portion, what verse was it that says, "I catch the Masoretics," or maybe the Septuagint actually does say sit between the cherubim? What was that? What was that verse? I'm trying to remember if that was early in the reading.
That's 12:6 or 13:6.
Okay, I'm just curious if all versions of the Septuagint say between or some say above. I've seen many times the Bretons even will say above the cherubim. Interesting. Interesting. Let's just see here. Upon the cherubim. This is where it gets weird. You got two different versions of the Septuagint not agreeing. Yeah, I'm wondering if it's supposed to be above, if Breton screwed up. Because I notice I've studied a lot through this, just taking notes every time we do these the half tour readings every week. The majority of the time, even the Bretons will say Yahuwah who sits above rather than between the cherubim. And I'm wondering if Breton screwed up somehow this Greek word epi or epi. I'm kind of wondering if he screwed up on this word. Upon, on, over, against. Yeah, that sounds more like above than in between to me. The Thayer's Greek definition of that word. So the Apostolic Bible Polyglot kind of reconciles that, where they put upon the cherubim for 1 Chronicles 13:6. Yeah, so just something I want to keep an eye on, because earlier we read in Isaiah, the Targum of Isaiah said he sits above the cherubim. So I'm keeping a little record here of the times the Targums agree with the Septuagint over the Masoretic in this area. So it seems like Brenton made a little boo-boo here. He kind of messed up here. So anyway, go ahead, brother Dennis. I don't mean to keep you waiting.
It's okay. Yeah, mine says between. Amazing, you can get 3 different versions out of that.
It doesn't identify him as a Levite.
Okay, let's see. 15, chapter 15. And he built houses for himself in the city of Daud, and he prepared a place for the ark of Yahuwah and pitched a tent for it. Then Daud said, no one is to lift the ark of Yahuwah but the Levites, for Yahuwah has chosen them to lift the ark of Yahuwah and to serve him forever. And Daud assembled all Yisrael at Jerusalem to bring up the ark of Yahuwah to its place, which he had prepared for it. And Daud gathered the children of Aharon and Levites, the sons of Kehath, Uriel the chief, and 120 of his brothers. Of the sons of Merari, Asaiah the chief, and 220 of his brothers. Of the sons of Gershom, Joel the chief, and 130 of his brothers. Of the sons of Elitzaphan, Shemaiah the chief, and 200 of his brothers. Of the sons of Hebron, Eliel the chief, and 80 of his brothers. Of the sons of Uzziel, Aminadab the chief, and 112 of his brothers. And Daud called for Zadok and Abiathar the priest, and for the Levites were Uriel, Asaiah, and Joel, Shemaiah, and Eliel, and Aminadab, and said to them, you are the heads of the fathers' houses of the Levites. Set yourselves apart, and you and your brothers. Then you shall bring up the ark to Yahuwah, Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael, to the place I have prepared for it. Because you did not do it the first time, Yahuwah our Elohim broke out against us, because he did not ask him about the right ruling. So the priests and the Levites set themselves apart to bring up the ark of Yahuwah, Elohim of Yisrael. And the children of Levites bore the ark of Elohim on their shoulders, by its poles, as Moshe had commanded, according to the word of Yahuwah. And Daud spoke to the leaders of the Levites to appoint their brothers, the singers, with instruments of song, harps and lyres and cymbals, to lift up the voice with joy. And the Levites appointed Heman, son of Joel, and of his brothers, Asaph, son of Barak-Yahu, and of their brothers, the sons of Merari, Ethan, son of Cushayu, and with them their brothers of the second rank, Zechariah, Ben, and Yaziel, and Shemiramoth, and Jehiel, and Uni, Eliab, and Beniyahu, Maasayahu, and Mattathayahu, and Elihu, and Mikneyahu, and Obed-Edom, and Yeiel, the gatekeepers. And the singers, Heman, Asaph, and Ethan, were to sound the cymbals of bronze. And Zechariah, and Azael, and Shemiramoth, and Jehiel, and Uni, and Eliab, harps according to Elamoth. And Mattathayahu, and Eliphayahu, and Mitneyahu, and Obed-Edom, and Yeiel, and Azaziyahu, to lead with lyres on the Sheminith, and Kenanyahu, leader of the Levites, in the song, because he was skilled, and Barakiah and Elkanah were doorkeepers for the ark, and Shebaniyahu and Josaphat, and Nathaniel, and Amasai, and Zechariah, and Benaiah, and Eleazar the priest were to blow the trumpets before the ark of Elohim. And Obed-Edom and Jehiah were doorkeepers for the ark. And it was David and the elders of Israel and the commanders over thousands who went to bring up the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah from the house of Obed-Edom with joy. And it came to be, when Elohim helped the Levites who bore the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, that they offered 7 bulls and 7 rams. And David was dressed in a robe of fine linen, as were all the Levites who bore the ark, the singers, and Kenaniah, the leader of the service with the singers. And Daud wore a linen shoulder garment. So all Yisrael brought up the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah with shouting and with the sound of the horn, with trumpets and with cymbals, sounding the harps and lyres. And it came to be, as the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah came to the city of Daud, that Michal, the daughter of Shaul, looking through a window, saw sovereign David dancing and playing, and she despised him in her heart. 16. And they brought the ark of Elohim and set it in the midst of the tent that Daud had pitched for it, and they brought burnt offerings and peace offerings before Elohim. And when Daud had made an end of offering the burnt offerings and the peace offerings, he brought the people in the name of Yahuwah, and gave a portion to every one of Yisrael, both man and woman, to every one a loaf of bread, a measure, and a cake of raisins. And he appointed some of the Levites to serve before the ark of Yahuwah, to bring to remembrance, and to thank, and to praise Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael. Asaph, the chief, and his second, Zechariah, Yael, and Timmermoth, and Rehael, Matthiah, and Eliab, and Benaiah, and Obed-Edom, and Yael, with harps and lyres, but Asaph was sounding with cymbals. And Benaiah and Yahaziel, the priest, continually blew the trumpets before the ark of the covenant of Elohim. And on that day, Daud first gave thanks to Yahuwah by the hand of Asaph and his brothers. Give thanks to Yahuwah, call upon his name, make known his deeds among the peoples. Sing to him, sing praise to him, speak of all his wonders, boast in his set-apart name. Let the hearts of those seeking Yahuwah rejoice. Seek Yahuwah and his strength. Seek his face continually. Remember his wonders which he has done, his signs and the right ruling of his mouth. O seed of Yisrael, his servant. O children of Jacob, his chosen ones. He is Yahuwah our Elohim. His right rulings are in all the earth. Remember his covenant forever, the word of his command for 1,000 generations, which he made with Abraham in his oath to Yitzhak, and he established it to Jacob for a law, to Yisrael as an everlasting covenant, saying, to you I give the land of Canaan, the portion of your inheritance, when you were but few in number, few indeed, and sojourners in it. And they went up to the town, up and down, from the one nation to another. And from one reign of another people, he allowed no one to oppress them. And he reproved sovereigns for their sake, saying, do not touch my anointed ones, and do my prophets no evil. Sing to Yahuwah all the earth. Proclaim his deliverance from day to day. Declare his esteem among the nations, his wonders among all peoples. For great is Yahuwah, and greatly to be praised. And he is to be feared above all mighty ones. For all the mighty ones of the peoples are matters of nothing. But Yahuwah made the Shemaim, heavens. Excellency and splendor are before him. Strength and gladness are in his place. Ascribe to Yahuwah, O clans of the peoples. Ascribe to Yahuwah esteem and strength. Ascribe to Yahuwah the esteem of his name. Bring an offering and come before him. Bow yourself to Yahuwah in the splendor of set apartness. Tremble before him, all the earth. The world also is firmly established, immovable. Let the Shemaim heavens rejoice, and let the earth be glad. And let them say among the nations, Yahuwah shall reign. Let the sea roar, and all that fills it. Let the field rejoice, and all that is in it. Let the trees of the forest that sing before Yahuwah. For he shall come to judge the earth. Give thanks to Yahuwah, for he is told, for his kindness is everlasting. And say, save us, O Alim, of our deliverance, and gather us together, and deliver us from the Gentiles. Give thanks to your set apart one, and boast in your praise. Barak be Yahuwah, Alim of Yisrael, for everlasting to everlasting. And all the people said, so be it, and praised Yahuwah. So he left Asaph and his brothers there before the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah to perform regular service before the ark as each day required. Also, Obed-Edom with his 68 brothers, including Obed-Edom, son of Yehuthan, and Hatzah, to be gatekeepers. And Zidok, the priest, and his brothers, the priests, before the dwelling place of Yahuwah at the high place that was in Gibeon, to offer burnt offerings to Yahuwah on the altar of burnt offering regularly morning and evening, and to do according to all that is written in the Torah of Yahuwah, which he commanded Yisrael. And with them, Haman and Yeduthan and the rest who were chosen, who were designated by name to give thanks to Yahuwah, became his kindness, because his kindness is everlasting. And with them, Haman and Yeduthan, who sound aloud with trumpets and cymbals and instruments for the songs of Alaim, and the sons of Yeduthan for the gate. And all the people went, each one to his house, and Daud returned to Barak his house. 17. And it came to be, when Daud was dwelling in his house, that Daud said to Nathan the prophet, see, I am dwelling in a house of cedar, but the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah is under curtains. And Nathan said to Daud, do all that is in your heart, for Elohim is with you. And it came to be that night that the word of Elohim came to Nathan, saying, go, and you shall say to my servant Daud, thus says Yahuwah, do not build me a house to dwell in, for I have not dwelt in a house since the time that I brought up Yisrael, even to this day, but have gone from tent to tent, and from one dwelling place to another. Wherefore I have moved about with all Yisrael. Have I ever spoken a word to any of the rulers of Yisrael, whom I commanded to shepherd my people, saying, why have you not built me a house of cedar? And now say this to my servant Daud, thus said Yahuwah of hosts, I took you from the sheepfold, from following the sheep, to be ruler over my people Yisrael. And I have been with you wherever you have gone, and have cut off all your enemies from before you, and have made you a name like the name of great men who are on the earth. And I shall prepare a place for my people Yisrael, and plant them, and they shall dwell in a place of their own, and move no more. Nor shall the sons of wickedness oppress them any more, as at the first. Since the time that I commanded rulers to be over my people Yisrael, and have humbled all your enemies, and I declared to you that Yahuwah does build you a house. And it shall be when your days are filled to go to be with your fathers, that I shall raise up your seed after you, who is of your sons, and I shall establish his reign. He does build me a house, and I shall establish his throne forever. I am to be his father, and he is to be my son. And my kindness I do not turn away from him, as I took it from him who was before you. And I shall establish him in my house and in my reign forever, and let his throne be established forever. According to all these words, and according to all this vision, so did Nathan speak to Daud. And sovereign Daud came in and sat before Yahuwah and said, Who am I, O Yahuwah, Elohim, and what is my house that you have brought me this far? And this was a small matter in your eyes, O Elohim, but you have spoken of your servant's house for a great while to come, and have looked upon me as though I were an exalted man, O Yahuwah Elohim. What more could Daud add to you for the esteem of your servant? For you know your servant, O Yahuwah, for your servant's sake, and according to your own heart, you have done all the greatness in making known all these great matters. O Yahuwah, there is none like you, nor is there any Elohim beside you, according to all that have been heard with our ears. And who is like your people, Yisrael, the one nation on Haaretz, the earth, whom Elohim went to redeem for himself as a people, to make for himself a great and awesome name, by driving out nations from before your people, whom you redeemed from Mitzrayim. For you appointed your people, Yisrael, to be your own people forever. And you, Yahuwah, have become their Elohim. And now, O Yahuwah, the word which you have spoken concerning your servant and concerning his house, let it stand fast forever, and do as you have said. So let it stand fast, and your name be great forever, saying, Yahuwah of hosts, Elohim of Yisrael, is Elohim of Yisrael, and let the house of your servant Daud be established before you. For you, O my Elohim, have revealed to your servant to build a house for him. Therefore your servant has found courage to pray before you. And now, Yahuwah, you are Elohim, and have promised this covenant to your servant. And now you have been pleased to brought the house of your servant to be before you forever. For you have brought it, O Yahuwah, and it is brought forever. That's it. Yeah, you let Shlomo build the house.
Yeah. And I think,
David.
Yep, go ahead, brother. I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, he let Shlomo build the house because he said that David was just too violent.
Yeah. Well, you gotta remember too, one of the abominations in Proverbs Yahuwah hates, right, is hands that shed innocent blood. So
that's right.
To think about with Uriah the Hittite and all that. So that's something to think about. Even though Yahuwah had mercy on David and forgave him, that's still technically on his record of, the books of works. When that's opened up on Judgment Day, he's still going to have that there. So
Yahuwah,
in Yahuwah's infinite wisdom, he's like, listen, you shed too much blood, man. All right, I'm not going to have someone that, has a stain on them build my house. In a way, that's a pretty big stain, committing murder in your heart first, then even though he didn't directly kill the guy, he made sure the guy got killed in war.
Right.
And then he took the guy's wife. I mean, that's a pretty big stain. So in Yahuwah's pure righteous eyes, I don't think he would want someone with that big of a stain on their record building him a place for his dwelling.
Even though he repented,
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think Solomon was chosen for multiple reasons. I think originally, if Solomon would have been obedient, he was to foreshadow Messiah too. If you look at, there's a lot of parallels between Solomon and Yahusha.
Yeah.
In his early walk, he rides a donkey when he gets coronated. A lot of things that parallel King Solomon and Yahusha. And Yahusha even says that he likens himself to King Solomon, but he says he's greater. He says he talks about how Solomon was arrayed and all that, and then he says, the Son of Man though is greater. I'm like paraphrasing right now. He talks about he's greater than Solomon. So there even Yahusha in his own mind, he likened Solomon into a type of Messiah in his early days. So I think there was multiple reasons Yahuwah wanted Solomon to build his temple, in my opinion. There was like prophetic reasons. When you look at the book of Zechariah, the branch is supposed to build his temple. I think it's Zechariah 6:12-13. And obviously that's talking about a future temple, but at the same time, it's kind of a parallel there to what Solomon was chosen to do. So I see a lot of parallels to him and Yahusha. I remember a lot of our brothers and sisters, when they first came out of the church, what they used to do is to introduce people to Torah. What they would do, and I don't know if they still do it with certain congregations, but they would parallel the journey of Joseph and Yahusha's human ministry and see how many parallels you can find with these types of messiahs like Joseph, Moses, Joshua, Yahusha, son of Nun, and all them. And you'll see all these types of Messiah before Messiah even came to earth. So that's kind of my 2 cents about it. I think Solomon was predestined pretty much to be building that temple. Let's see here. I found it interesting how many times it mentions the trumpets in these past 2 chapters. 16 verse 42, 16 verse 20, verse 16 verse 6, 15 verse 28. The Restored Name King James actually, for the word shofar, uses cornet. And I'm assuming for the other word for trumpet, they use chatzasera, which is actually the word in Numbers 10 in the Masoretic. So there's 2 different words that are kind of separate because they're talking about 2 different types of trumpets. A cornet, usually in modern day, cornets are not made of silver. They're usually made of gold or brass. They're not really made of like silver. So they're technically a different type of trumpet, technically. Let's see here. So I thought it was interesting, 17 verse 7, instead of Sabaoth, it says Yahuwah Almighty in the Septuagint. So a little bit different with the title there. Instead of armies or Sabaoth, it says Yahuwah Almighty. See here, I think that's about it. I wrote something down in verse 24 of chapter 15. I want to see what was important about that. Let's see here. Go back to 15. I have to go drag back to previous chapter with the word software here. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, Benaias. Yeah, trumpets again. The priests were sounding with trumpets before the Ark of Elohim. So I guess the priests were given duties to sound trumpets at certain points in time as like for certain reasons. Like I would assume since they're given charge of the Ark of the Covenant, it would only make sense that they're sounding trumpets before the Ark of the Covenant. So that kind of makes sense. But not, and I don't want people getting confused. This is not saying that they're the only ones that can blow the trumpet. We talked about that before many times in previous Sabbath sessions. If you go to Psalms 81 verse 3, it's a commandment to all 12 tribes to blow the trumpet on the new moon. So obviously Yahuwah is not limiting the silver trumpets to the priests. So I just don't want people getting confused, because some versions of the Bible they'll add in there only the priests
Oh yeah.
in Numbers 10, which is they're adding to his word to do that. They're adding to his word, which we just read about in Deuteronomy today. You're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to be adding to the Father's word. So if you have a translation in Numbers 10 that says only the priests, that word only is not there in the Hebrew or the Greek, just to let you know. So that's a very Jewish tradition, mainstream Judaism tradition, is that the Levites they were the only ones to have authority to blow the trumpets. And I wonder, and this is just me inferring here, I wonder if that's where the switch between trumpets to ram's horns happened. If they had a raw understanding of the silver trumpets and they thought, well, we don't have a Levitical priesthood, so now we have to use a different instrument. I kind of wonder where that whole tradition comes from, switching to the trumpets to the ram's horns out of nowhere. So
Yeah.
so that's I wonder if that has to do with, because I have read on multiple blogs and websites this Jewish and even Christian tradition that they insert is they believe the priests can only blow the silver trumpets at the temple and all that, and so they're assuming that through tradition. So, but anyway, so I thought it was interesting how many times in these chapters Brother Dennis just read the trumpets are being mentioned as an important instrument here in worship, in praising Yahuwah, praising his name. Um, let's see here. I thought it was interesting in chapter 16, verse 10. It's a little bit different in Septuagint, because the phrase there is those that seek his pleasure, meaning, the pleasure of Yahuwah, what's right in his eyes. So I thought that was a little interesting, a little bit more direct. Other than that, that's all I really got for notes from that reading from First Chronicles. So we're going to be moving on, and we're going to be doing the last portion for today's study. Unless Brother Joshua has anything. I don't know if that's a new hand or old hand. I can never tell sometimes.
No, it's a new hand.
Okay.
Just had a couple interesting points. First Chronicles 15:29. It says, "And the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah arrived and came to the city of Daud. And Michal, the daughter of Shaul, looked down through the window and saw King Daud dancing and playing, and she despised him in her heart." And another part, I think it kind of expounds on that in 2 Samuel 6:16, but I won't go into that. But what you see is this type of pride where she's more concerned about the way that he looks before people. And she's the daughter of Shaul, and you saw that same type of behavior with Shaul. He was more concerned about how the people perceived him than truly pleasing Yahuwah. And so you kind of see that behavior, that type of mindset passed down through his family. So I saw that.
Yeah, I think he was dancing naked, and it burned her up, and Yahuwah, I think, closed her womb.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did close.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to understand, back then it wasn't like he was like sexually enticing women or anything.
No,
I think she was just very jealous. She was very jealous. She didn't like the attention he was getting. Probably, she didn't like. Probably she was jealous of all the women that found her husband attractive.
Yeah, they were.
And he even defended himself in the original story. What we got to understand is Chronicles is a overview of what happens in First Kings and Second Kings. So you're not going to get the whole story. So that's something to keep in mind. First and Second Chronicles, I believe, even chronologically, was written later on after First and Second Kings and First and Second Samuel. So what it does, it retells it, but in a more condensed way. So you're not not going to get the whole story. You're not going to get why she's mad at him. Obviously, if you read First and Second Kings, it talks about, it hints to her jealousy. It hints to that. She really didn't like him to begin with. If you know the whole story, just to give you a glossed overview in First and Second Kings, he was forced to marry her and vice versa. Pretty much Saul trapped him into marrying her. And he pretty much said, well, you'll be a son-in-law to the king and all that.
He thought the allegiance would be stronger had he been a son-in-law,
And David at first didn't want it. He even said, he's like, how can someone little like me be son-in-law to the king? So really, it wasn't like David was seeking to be his son-in-law.
Right.
That was more or less, he was counseled into it by, I forget if it was Nathan the prophet or one of them counseled him into accepting the offer from Saul. And so really, you could say it was an arranged marriage. It wasn't even out of love, number one. So it was kind of like, okay, they barely know each other. She doesn't really have feelings for him. He doesn't really have feelings for her whatsoever. And they're just being forced to marry one another for allegiance or alliance between David and Saul. It's a very bad situation to begin with to start out. You're going to start a marriage like that. And, so I think obviously that marriage, I don't know how Yahuwah probably looked at that marriage. He's like, all right, whatever, the devil's trying to get his little foothold in there. So you know what, I'm just gonna punish the woman that he's using, and I think that's what really happened and what we got to understand too, there's generational curses, like Brother Joshua was saying. So Saul had a demon in him for the rest of his life. That demon, that you could say a familiar spirit, probably hung around with his children that were not obedient. Jonathan probably didn't still would have that demon hanging around, and that unclean spirit Yahuwah gave to Saul could have, once Saul died, it could have lashed itself to David's wife, who was the daughter of Saul. And obviously she didn't like him too much. It's pretty obvious she didn't.
She absolutely.
Generational curses.
Who?
Absalom. Was she Absalom's mother?
I don't think so. No, that would have been Bathsheba.
No, Bathsheba.
It's not Bathsheba?
No.
Well, David had a couple of wives.
Oh, he had several. He had at least 10 or 12. Yeah.
So I would have to go back to find that out.
I can look it up.
In First Kings, I would have to find that out. But either way, from the beginning, that marriage was kind of doomed because it was established based on Saul trying to trap David, really. Go ahead, Joshua.
I can wait until you're finished. I had a couple more points, but go ahead, bro.
Oh, go ahead. I'm pretty much finished.
So I had one comment and then I had two questions. 1721, it says, neither is there another nation upon the Eret, such as your people Yasharal, where Yahuwah led him in the way to redeem a people for himself, to make for himself a great and esteemed name, to cast out nations from before your people, whom you have redeemed out of Mitzrayim. Just when looking at this compared to the mighty ones that you see throughout Scripture and the mighty ones that you see today, you see these foreign mighty ones that they don't really have any love for anyone outside of themselves. All they care for is worship for themselves. Yahuwah is the only mighty one where you get this concept of a shepherd who is willing to go outside of himself, to rescue his people. That's a beautiful thing. You don't see that with any other mighty ones.
They just want power.
Yeah, I think to add to Brother Joshua's point, piggyback off of it, even with the sacrifices, when you see Yahuwah's sacrifice system versus the demons and the fallen angels, they all want you to give up your firstborn and kill your own firstborn. Yahuwah never commanded child sacrifice. When he said give up your firstborn, your firstborn human child would be redeemed by an animal. So that even of itself is completely more loving and different than human sacrifice that you see going on. The Molech sacrifice, the Baal sacrifice, the sacrifices that they would probably do to Zeus or Jupiter. It's all selfish. It's all, oh, give me your firstborn. Make your firstborn pass through the fire. It's all demonic. It's all evil. It's probably because Satan's behind all of it. I mean, to put it in a nutshell for people that are not familiar with the scriptures and the non-believers that come by our videos, basically this demon worship, it all goes back to Satan. It doesn't matter what idol you serve. Ultimately, it goes back to Satan, because Satan pretty much, he's the guy that pretty much is, leading the show for as far as the, kingdom of darkness goes. I mean, he's pretty much the guy that's pretty much, behind the scenes and all that. He's the one that created all these, him and, his cohorts, his 1/3 that fell with him are the ones that created all these false religions. So when you really dive deep into it, this verse makes a lot of sense that Brother Joshua brought up. This makes a lot of sense. The demons, the fallen angels or demons of the nations that we talked about earlier today in Deuteronomy 32:8, they don't care about the people that were under them. And before I give it back to Brother Joshua, I just want to show you how much they really didn't care. If we go to Psalms 82 here, they didn't judge for the orphan or the widow. They didn't care about that. They cared about themselves. I'm reading from the Aramaic Peshitta Psalms here. It says, Elohim stands in the assembly of the angels, of the Elohim. And among the angels, he will judge. So he's judging fallen angels. How will you vindicate evil and accept the face of the wicked? Judge the orphans and the afflicted and justify the poor and the meek. So they failed to do that. He put them over nations, like Deuteronomy 32 says, and they rebelled. Save the poor and the afflicted from the hand of the wicked, for they have not known, neither are they wise. They have been walking in darkness, and all the foundations of the earth are moved. I have said, you are mighty ones. This is where Yahusha quotes from in John. I have said, you are mighty ones. You are all children of the highest, or the Most High. Therefore, you will die like men, die like the children of men, and you will fall like each of the princes. Arise, O Elohim, and judge the earth, because you will inherit all the nations. So, and in the Greek, that would be all the ethnicities he's going to inherit. Yahuwah is going to inherit all the ethnoses, all the ethnicities. So pretty much we see here, to Joshua's point that he brought up, they really are selfish. They are very selfish. They were so selfish that even when Yahuwah gave them dominion over the Gentiles that rejected Yahuwah at the Tower of Babel, according to Deuteronomy 32, verse 8, these same principalities, they just cared about themselves. They cared about worship. They wanted to be worshipped by these other nations. But once it came to them being held, even though they've rebelled against Yahuwah, they're still held to a standard. They're still held to do right by these nations. And they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to be held to any responsibility for these nations, judging for the cause of the poor, the widow, the orphan. So I just find it interesting that even scripture shows us this multiple times, that these gods of the nations, they're selfish, they're demonic, they're evil, they don't care about people. They really don't. They care about themselves. So anyway, I'm going to give it back to Brother Joshua.
So I looked up the genealogy of Uzzah. the one that touched the ark and was struck down. There seems to be only one Uzzah. Strong's mentions a couple different ones. However, like when looking at all the different chapters it gives, it seems to only give one genealogy, and it seems to suggest that he's a Benjamite, not a Levite. So my question is that were Levites allowed to touch the ark, or were they only supposed to carry it by the? Because I know they carried it by the staffs that were inserted into the rings of the ark. Why exactly was he struck down? Was it because he was a Benjamite, or was it because he touched the ark? Period. You get my question? Was it because he was struck down? Was he struck down because he was a Benjamite that touched the ark instead of being a Levite touching the ark, or was it just that he touched it? Period.
Yeah. If he's not of Levi and he touched it and he died, that seems to be the reason. But also the Levites were supposed to be the ones to carry it too. To answer your other question, they were not just supposed to touch it, but they were supposed to take care of the Ark of the Covenant, minister to Yahuwah before Yahuwah with it. They pretty much were the ones, like when the Ark of the Covenant was first created, and they would be on the move, moving the tabernacle and all that. The Levites were in charge of all that. They were in charge of taking down the tabernacle, carrying the ark, and all that. That was their job. So yeah, no other tribe is supposed to touch it or carry it. So yeah.
Now, were they supposed to touch it, or were they only supposed to carry it with the staffs inside the rings?
I think they were supposed to carry it with the staves in, if I'm not mistaken. But the Levites, technically, they would probably be the only tribe that probably could touch it and not die, technically, because that's their administration that Yahuwah gave them, and that's why you see
David was a little
instances where David, even of Judah, mind you, he's not of Levi, so that's why he's scared to touch it.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
And so yeah, that seems to be the case. That seems to be the case why that guy died. It's because he wasn't of Levi. And from what I've seen in scripture, any time that someone not of Levi even puts their hand on it for a second, they die.
Wow.
And you even see that with the Philistines. They I don't think they ever touched it, but somehow it became in their possession, and they were cursed. They were like cursed for it being in their possession, even though they never physically touched it with their hands. It was like somehow in the temple of Dagon, somehow it got there. And I forget the whole story, but for the whole time it was in the temple of Dagon, bad things were like happening to them. And so yeah, like it's supposed to resemble Yahuwah's mercy seat. That's the importance of the Ark of the Covenant. It's supposed to resemble what his throne is like up in heaven, and him sitting above the two cherubs. It's supposed to represent that's what you see in the third heaven. So yeah, good questions. Yeah.
Also in 17:9, the Masoretic seems to differ from the Septuagint. Instead of saying the sons of wickedness, it says the son, as in singular, the son of iniquity shall no longer afflict him, as at the beginning. And with it saying the son of iniquity shall no longer afflict him as at the beginning, I'm wondering if that is referring to people, or if it's referring to Satan.
Yeah, definitely referring. What chapter and verse is that again?
17:9.
17:9. And I will point a place. I'm trying to see the context of this, because this looks like end times prophecy the way it's worded. I will appoint a place for my people, Yashrael, because Yahuwah's already done that at this point. Jerusalem is their place. I will plant him. That sounds very similar to like restoring the tent of David and all that in prophecy. Kind of wondering if this is like future prophecy.
Oh, I know what I want.
And he shall dwell by himself and shall no longer be anxious. And the son of iniquity, the man of lawlessness, son of lawlessness, shall no longer afflict him as at the beginning. And you could say even as at the beginning could be referring to the first man of lawlessness, Nimrod back in Genesis 11. So I could interpret that as referring even to Genesis 11, where you had this world ruler that, afflicted the righteous, led a worldwide rebellion at the Tower of Babel. But it could also be referring to Satan too. I could see it as a dual thing, a dual prophecy, and talking about both of them as the son of iniquity, the man of lawlessness. And just to show people where Joshua is getting this conclusion from, I'm going to show you really quick from 2 Thessalonians where he's pulling the two terminologies as related to one another. So 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, I think it's at verse 4 it starts off, or actually verse 3. So it says, let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come. And the day that doesn't come is referring to Messiah's return, unless the falling away comes first, and the man of lawlessness is unveiled, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called deity or the object of worship, so that he sits as Yahuwah in the temple of Yahuwah, showing himself that he is Yahuwah. Do you not remember that while I was still with you, I was telling you these things? And, it goes on to say, and now you know which is restrained, that he may be revealed in his own time. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains will continue until the one arises from out of the midst. Then it goes on to the lawless one. And then the lawless one will be unveiled, whom the master will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. By the way, that is a direct quote from Paul to Isaiah 11:4, just FYI. So, yeah, go ahead, Mom.
I have one thing I had meant to say, and I almost forgot. We get a real insight to Abba's, one of the reasons he's so, why the Feast of Tabernacles is so important, because as he's talking to David about building the house, and he tells David, and I never noticed this in scripture before, he tells David that I have been without a permanent dwelling since the days of Egypt. And so we're reminded that just like Israel went in tents from one place to the next, so did Abba. He did not have a permanent dwelling. And so he's reminding us that just like they did that, he did that as well. So you can understand why Tabernacles is so important to him, that you remember those days, that's how it was, that but I had never seen that before, him mentioning that I dwelt in tents as well from place to place. So I found that extremely profound.
I want to check something here from an extra biblical resource about the term son of lawlessness. I have a feeling that this book, the Ascension of Isaiah, calls Satan by that title. I kind of want to give some added witness to Brother Joshua's assertion about it referring to Satan. Okay. It's similar. The title they give him. Okay. It says here, and I'm using this for historical reference only. I'm not saying this is inspired or canon, but the extra biblical book of the Ascension of Isaiah, translated by R.H. Charles, it says here in chapter 4, referring to like an end time prophecy that's similar to Revelations in our canon. It says, or this is actually supposedly during the time of Isaiah, actually. Let me correct myself here. It's saying in chapter 2, verse 4 of the Ascension of Isaiah, and Manasseh, referring to, the wicked king of Judah, Manasseh, turned aside his heart to serve Beliar. For the angel of lawlessness, who is the ruler of this world, is Beliar. So, and you can find, by the way, the name Beliar is actually in our canon, just FYI. It's actually in 2 Corinthians 6:15. Paul refers to Satan by the name of Beliar, which is kind of funny because in that name you have the word liar.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funny because Yahusha says the devil was what from the beginning?
Oh, father of lies.
He was a liar from the beginning, and he has never stood in truth. So I kind of find it funny. Extra biblical book calls him Beliar, and so does Paul in 2 Corinthians 6:15. So I kind of find that interesting. But anyway, it calls him the angel of lawlessness, not son of lawlessness. Similar though. Yep. Go ahead, Joshua.
Where was that at? Angel of
That's,
lawlessness?
that is angel of lawlessness according to the ascension of Isaiah chapter 2 verse 4. It claims that Beliar is the angel of lawlessness.
Okay.
So yeah.
Another thing in that Beliar, you also have in the very first part of that, you have Bel, which I've seen as a variation of Baal.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, Bel. And Mom, isn't Beelzebub supposed to be another name for Satan?
Beelzebub. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the New Testament. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there, which by the way is notice how some of those names don't have L at the end. So just FYI, an angel does not need to have L at the end of its name to be an angel, to be the name of an angel. There's many different traditional names for names for Satan outside the canon where L is not at the end of his name. So Beliar is one of them that's technically actually in the canon in 2 Corinthians 6:15. So technically it is in the canon as a name of Satan. But anyway, angel of lawlessness, son of lawlessness, very similar. Very similar. And I think Brother Josh was onto something was 1 Chronicles 17:9 referring to Satan. In my opinion, I think it's referring to Satan and the beast at the same time. It's kind of like a dual type of prophecy, in my opinion. But yeah, good stuff. All right. Okay, let's see here. I think we are going to finally get to the new covenant portion today, but we had a lot of good stuff, a lot of good expounding so far. So let me just get the new recording going. Let's see. Let me just stop the Facebook Live, start a new one. Stop the recording, start a new one.